my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life.
This song says, no matter who you are, no matter where you go in your life, at some point you're going to need somebody to stand by you.
When the night has come and the land is dark and that moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't shed one tear. Just as long as your people come and stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand, stand, stand by. Come on, stand by. Stand by. Yeah.
Oh, when that sky that we look upon, well, she tumble and fall on the mountains, they should tumble into the sea. I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Please stand. Stand by me.
Stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Please stand.
Stand by me.
Well, let's keep in mind a very important detail is that we have about 3% of the world's population, and yet we produce 24 to 25% of the carbon output. So we are the gorilla in the room if we're going to make a change. The things that the president was describing and has described in the first 4 years of his administration are the things that we know work. converting slowly, if it has to be, to renewables, wind, solar. For a while, nuclear and even shale gas can play a big part in this. The kinds of things the president has had to do in order to sidestep a somewhat recalcitrant Congress, like raising fuel efficiency standards, these things work as well. It's a little bit like, as you say, cholesterol. We know what the solutions are. We just have to be willing to embrace them.
Are we likely to see, with these fluctuations, any further dispute among the scientific community that what we're dealing with is a result of global warming?
Well, I think of the folks who are the climate deniers as the flat earthers and the people who say the moon landings never happened. At some point, the body of scientific knowledge becomes so overwhelming that if you're denying it, you're sort of willfully excluding yourself from the big people's table where the conversations take place. And I do think that that argument that this is a hoax, that this is ginned up,
I think that those people are in such a tiny, tiny minority now with their point of view. They're almost like the ones who still believe that the moon landing was staged in a movie lot in Arizona, and those who believe the Earth is flat. That demeans them a little bit, but it's not that far off.
Is a fantasy, and he knows it's a fantasy. Now, let me go a step further. Let's talk flat. I'm just asking the president, who apparently belongs to the Flat Earth Sierra Club.
We don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth.
In the mountains up near Sandpoint, north of Naples, Idaho, eagles gathered there together to guard the truth, so you might know. Down the road that followed Deep Creek, at the turn that crossed the bridge, federal marshals had the roadblock to mark the siege of Ruby Ridge. There the armies of the enemy slayed your bride and only son, nearly killed your close companion when the shrapnel pierced his lung. We stand with you, Randy Weaver, 'cause your Lord and Savior lives. Wheresoever eagles gather, that is where his body is. On that evening, late one August, you were forced to take your stand. There two strangers as they trespassed drew first blood on private land. Governor Andrus back in Boise, he let the enemy tell him lies, and from his anti-Christ decision, Sam and Vicky lost their lives. Federal agents, U.S. Marshals, and FBI men stormed the Hill, all on false, fictitious charges, given orders shoot to kill. We stand with you, Randy Weaver, 'cause your Lord and Savior lives. Wheresoever eagles gather, that is where his body is.
Have seen today the dark side of those activities, where many Americans who were not even suspected of crime were not only spied upon, but they were harassed, they were discredited, and at times endangered.
Frank Church headed a Senate committee probing the intelligence community. Church took an open approach that some of his colleagues questioned.
Where does the public's right to be secure override the public's right to know about something? Because in informing the public on a very sensitive matter, you're also informing the potential enemies of the United States. So I think you run into a philosophic conflict there. And I err on the side of protecting the security of the people.
For 30 years, Congress had turned a blind eye to intelligence. Now senators competed for the national spotlight as the intelligence hearings went public.
Every television camera in town was there, and it was really cranked up for a great show. I was told to bring this gun that we had developed and never used on people. My counsel, a very splendid guy who was with me, he said, look, don't you get near that thing. If it has to be handled, I will handle it.
Have you brought with you some of those devices which would have enabled the CIA to use this poison for...
We have indeed.
For killing people? Don't point it at me.
Mr. Colby was supposed to bring this gun up to Mr. Church. But seated next to him was the ranking Republican, Barry Goldwater. And Barry reached out and grabbed the gun and held it like this and got the picture that day. Because it was in every picture of the United States and maybe around the world, every front page. And the next day I confronted Goldwater. I said, Barry, did you know you were going to get your picture in the paper by taking the gun? He said, yes, I did. And I said, you took the gun away from the chairman. He said, I know I did. I said, where'd you learn that trick from? He said, Hubert Humphrey. And it worked.
While senators clamored for photo opportunities, Colby devised a strategy to save his agency.
If you try to hide every possible imperfection, it'll blow up in your face and you'll be worse off. Whereas if you can control it and be responsive and give them an honest feeling of what the whole thing is about, then I think you can survive one of these things.
You've heard of the doctrine of plausible deniability.
Yes, and I've rejected it now, Senator. I say that we cannot depend upon that anymore.
So you don't find the work of this committee unwelcome?
No, I do not. As I've said to the chairman, I welcome the chance to try to describe to the American people what intelligence is really about today. It is an opportunity to show how we Americans have modernized the whole concept of intelligence.
Colby's decision to cooperate was unpopular with some former CIA leaders who tried to hold on to the agency's secrets.
You were specifically asked about shellfish toxins and shellfish poisons. You say it's inconceivable that a secret intelligence arm of the government has to comply with all the overt orders of the government. Is that an accurate quote or not an accurate quote?
Well, if it's accurate, it shouldn't have been said.
Well, now, looks like we're on plausible denial again, is all I can say here, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you're never entirely sure because, after all, many of the people in the CIA have been trained to lie. That's their job, to spread propaganda overseas.
If one has in one's possession or under one's control bacteriological or chemical weapons, they can be used both defensively and offensively.
And by use offensively, we mean to include killing people, is that right?
Well, they have the capacity to kill people if they were used in that way.
Unrestrained, illegal, secret intimidation and harassment of the essential ability of Americans to participate freely in American political life shall never happen again.
We stand with you, Randy Weaver, 'cause your Lord and Savior lives. Wheresoever eagles gather, that is where his body is.